All right, good day, everyone. Welcome to our Inside the Block, sponsored by RoomRite Group Solutions. My name is Lon Hudman, and I will be your host and moderator today. And we have some great guests for our program today, and I'd like them to introduce themselves, tell a little bit about their background and their experience, and then we'll get to some questions. And the topic today is group travel is back, but it's different. We're going to talk about how it's changed, how it's evolved, and what we expect to happen in the future. So let's begin. We have Jenn Bradshaw. She is with Saver Fair Travel and Event Services. So tell us a little bit about yourself, Jenn, and what your background is.
Absolutely. Thank you, Lon. I'm so excited to be here, especially given the topic that we're about to launch into. But a little about me. I was born in the Philippines and adopted. My family was Navy, military, and we settled pretty much I'm in Northern Virginia. Um, I have always had a heart for hospitality. Shortly, it's funny. I say that, but when you go out to get your first job and you tell your dad you don't want to do food service and he did food service growing up, it rubbed a little bit differently. However, I have always had a heart of hospitality from a service perspective. Um, so in college, I actually owned a restaurant with my um, fiance back then. We were the only fine dining in the area. It was Italian. And that was my first introduction to hospitality in restaurants. And that's always kind of stayed with me because if you know me, I love gatherings, which is why group conversation is such a perfect topic for me. And I got into travel because who doesn't love travel? Um, I've I've had an eclectic career from human resources to finance to systems engineering. And I really truly believe that all of those skills that I learned in leadership and all the positions that I've held brought me here today to own my own business. Was it supposed to be in travel? I don't know. I love it. And as I've expanded into both small group travel and events and pivoted that more into my travel agency into that, I definitely feel that kindred lock into or love of hospitality. So I actually started my travel agency right after COVID, which I tend to do things very uniquely. A lot of people are like, are you really sure you want to do that?" I was like, yes. Everybody was on lockdown, and now everybody's gonna be like, never again. Like that fear of never being able to see what they had on their bucket list kind of came true. So even with different changes in the economy and things like that, I still believe that we'll always have restaurants, we'll always have hoteliers, we'll always have travel in some way, some form. And it's a great industry to be in. And it's one of the industries that I always tell young adolescents to get into hospitality and retail, have experience in both of those, because those life lessons are going to be immense and irreplaceable as you get older. So,
What an interesting background. And I know you have a very unique perspective in how you run your business. So I'm glad that you're here joining us as a
thank
panelist.
you.
Also, now I'd like to introduce you to Megan Grant. She is with Cherish Tours. So, Megan, tell us a little bit about your company and your business and your experience in the hospitality industry.
Absolutely. Thank you, Lon, for having me in RoomRite. I'm excited to talk about group travel and what that looks like now. Similar to Jenn, my road has not been straight. It's been a little bit windy and has touched several things, but the majority of my background is in conference planning. And for me, conference planning at a large scale, it burnt me out and it just was not what my purpose felt aligned with. So I also, during COVID, spent a lot of time in reflection to align my career with my purpose, and I launched Cherish Tours. And Cherish is a tour company that specifically hosts women on group trips around the world and directly supports the economic empowerment of women. So we have the privilege to meet incredible women all over the world and support them in their livelihoods, in their business ownership. And our women travelers love that immersive experience. So it's just been a pleasure to start redefining this group travel space.
All right, great. Welcome.
Thank you.
We also have Tonianne Piscitello. And Tonianne, talk a little bit about your experience before you got to RoomRite? I know you're on the staff with RoomRite, but tell us a little bit about your experience in the hospitality industry.
I grew up just north of Boston in a tourist town. So the minute I turned 16, I started in the hospitality industry, working in restaurants and hotels. And then I went to school for hospitality and tourism management, where I stayed in operate hotel operations for about 7 years till I switched to Amadeus Hospitality and switched to travel technology. Um, so then I just decided that I like working with the hotels, but I'm done with operations and done being front of the line and prefer a little back end work. But I still do events, still um, actually get to participate with hospitality, but not being front desk operations manager anymore, which I found is the great balance.
All right, great. Well, welcome all, one and all. Again, this is, I think, a very interesting topic and very timely. Group travel obviously is coming back. It's making its way back, but it's different. It's changed. And, Jen, you mentioned that you started right after COVID. So maybe you can kind of start out by telling us, how do you see group travel different now than it was in, say, 2019?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. So it's really interesting to me because when I started my business, I literally wanted to just jump from independent travel, solo traveler, whatever, just individual clients straight to groups. That didn't really happen, as Megan says, are never linear to where we want to go. But what I've seen differently is one I mentioned is that people are going to travel first and foremost. Now, the other thing is that I've been seeing in specifically with group travel is that they've people have gone, and I don't mean to call it out, but like Costco travel, Expedia travel, where they've had these like itineraries are mapped out and they're go, 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 go. It's great. It works for some people. My grandmother took so many bus trips and so many cruise trips that are like that, but that worked for that generation. We have worked really hard as a society to appreciate individuality. So, that being said, there is a thirst and a need for community, especially travel community, from a safety, protection, value. I'm sure we're going to get into that. And there's still that need for individuality. So when I made that shift from COVID, my whole idea, and when we first spoke, Lon, was to provide the perks or the amenities of group travel and to also ensure that the individuals on that group were also catered to and that they had a curated experience. And so that's what I'm seeing as a difference. I'm also not seeing the big 40 plus people trips. It's like 8, 10, 12, max 15 is what I do. So it's not like these huge groups where everybody gets on a bus and you're filling a bus. It's really more social groups. And that's social groups and business to business, like not even incentive trips, I'm sure we'll get into it, but business to business in the sense of creating a sense of place in order to create more connection and community within the community or the workplace itself. So that's definitely the changes I've seen.
Yeah, and we're going to actually get to that, how it's changed in terms of the size of the groups and the timeliness and when they book. So thanks for bringing that up. Megan, do you agree? Do you agree with that that's how it's changed, or you see some other things?
Yeah, I would totally agree with what Jen has already said that we're seeing a shift in especially the need for community. I think not only did COVID isolate us, but the day and age of technology and social media continues to isolate us. So people are seeking these in-person experiences to truly get on a deeper level with one another. And a lot of times, removing yourself from your routine and your comfort zone at home through travel is what's getting people there. I think the thing that I would add to what Jen said is that we're also seeing still this continued desire for something that is meaningful and immersive rather than just checking things off of a list. So people are going to Italy not only to see the Leaning Tower of Pisa and the Colosseum, but also to meet a local nonna and want to make pasta from scratch, right? They really want these deeper connections, not only with fellow travelers, but with the places that they're visiting. These surface level follow the leader with the flag through the streets of Rome isn't really cutting it anymore. People really are truly hoping for a more memorable and unique experience.
All right. So yeah, that kind of brings us to the next area or category of questions that I had in this topic, and that is how has behavior changed? We already mentioned that group sizes are changing. Do you feel like that groups are booking earlier, later? Are they delaying it? Are they kind of, I guess, more spontaneous in when they book their travel? How do you see that happening?
Jenn, if you don't mind, I'll jump right in
Mhm.
because I
Go
was just
ahead.
having this conversation yesterday in a community that I'm a part of that's called the Women's Tour Collective. And all of us are seeing with tour groups that it's both, Lon. We're seeing that we have groups that are booking 15, 16 months in advance and then literally not again until 60 days before. So, where we used to in the industry get a great turnout of people, I think around 4 to 6 months before, we're starting to see that it's on either end. It's like really far in advance because they are putting something on their calendar to look forward to. They need to budget for it. They're booking things that far out. Or there's someone who, because of the current state of things in the world, they're not sure if they're going to be able to commit to something. So they wait until the very last minute to see if there's something that feels safe for them to go ahead and book now.
Hmm. Okay, interesting.
Yeah.
What do you think, Jen?
So yeah, that's actually really interesting. And it's really reassuring to me that I have a supplier like Cherish that I can call on in that time of need of short turnaround or like you've got time. For me though, honestly, I don't usually take the clients that are like quick turnarounds. Personally in my business, just because the way that I like to curate at this specific level in which Megan's already touched on, that is immersive and specific. And sometimes I feel like to get that feel from my client, it takes a little bit of time. And so I'm always encouraging people, whether they're my individual clients, my business clients, group clients, if you know you're going to have something or you want something, sweet spot, 6 months. It's a 6 months at this point in time. Now, does that mean that we can't do shorter? Absolutely not. We can definitely do shorter, as short as 3 months out. That's as close as I like to do it. Um, However, I've been learning that I have supplier partners that can make it happen as quickly as what Megan was talking about. So that curation process that used to be all mine now can be held with a collaboration. And that makes it a lot different. So that's the difference that I'm starting to see for me as an advisor and an agency owner that I didn't have 2 years ago, 3 years ago. But now with partnerships, I can turn that around really quickly.
Awesome, awesome. So let's talk a little bit now about cost versus value. When you get pushback, is it more common that the pushback is on the price or is it on the value that they perceive that they're getting?
I'll take this because I get budget lines all the time when I'm working with suppliers first. It's so funny, Lon. So I actually have a budget minimum for individuals, and it's the same across the route. And it's just because I know what industry standards are, and I want my clients to be committed. That being said, it is budget. But so what's so funny is because I used to have a business as a health coach, people say what they think they want, and I have the deep emotional intelligence to give them what they really want. And so with that being said, someone will come to me like, oh, I don't know if I can do $10,000 minimum, right? Okay, well, let's talk about flights. If you're including the flights, you're including the hotel, and that alone, you have 3 people, and you're going abroad, you're coming really close. You're coming close at least 5 to 7 right there. So then you're adding in because it's usually your value is so much, you see the value, in my opinion, from the hotels and the excursions and the experiences, but you don't realize it because now you've wrapped it up in a package. So for example, I'll give you an example. I had that same thing happen with a client. It was a high school graduation. He promised his son when he graduated from high school, he could go anywhere in the world. And so when I had a conversation, I told him about the $10,000 budget for a curated itinerary. And he hemmed and hawed, came back and said, yes, I want to do it. He spent $10,000 on flights and $17,000 on the package itself. Because once I curated that with my other supplier, once I curated with everything he wanted to a T, the pace, the transfers, the things that his son wanted to do with anime, to experience a bike ride to a shrine, it was worth it because that was the value. They don't have any concept of what we have access to in the hospitality industry, which is something we need to do for education. But then they realize, oh, it's not. It literally is a shift in mentality. They're like, it's not the budget. I am willing to pay this because you just gave me everything I wanted for my son to celebrate my son. And there's three of us going to Japan. It's a once in a lifetime trip, and it's worth it. And so it's the value at the heart of it. It starts out as budget, but at the heart of it, it's the value.
Yeah, they may say it's the price, but really what they're looking for is value. Would you agree,
Yeah,
Megan?
I definitely agree. I think that there's still sticker shock when it comes to travel and what things cost. And for someone like me and Jenn, who work daily in this industry and know what travel actually costs, the sticker value, like, or sorry, the sticker cost, what it says that a tour package costs doesn't shock us as much as someone who has maybe never taken a group trip or been on a curated tour before. But when they start digging into it, I think that's when they're starting to see the added value in the fact that they don't have to plan anything. They get to just show up. I think the thing that I would say is that people are willing to pay a lot more for things that they're considering to be bucket list experiences, right? Like Jenn said, these once in a lifetime opportunities, that's when people aren't blinking at cost and it starts to become where value and cost blur. I'm sure so many people have seen the Giraffe Manor in I think it's Kenya, and these different places where they're charging over $1,000 a night to be able to stay and have this up close experience. And people have this on their bucket list so they don't blink at the cost. So when you're starting to talk about things like seeing the Northern Lights, going to Japan for the first time, seeing or doing whale watching off the coast of Hawaii, things like this that are truly bucket list experiences for people, then they're willing to pay tenfold what the perceived like cost is.
Yeah. Well, let's staying on the same topic. Um, More and more people, I think, want a personalized experience when they travel. How do you go about creating an experience that is individualized for the consumer?
Yeah, I think I'll take this really quick, Jenn,
Yeah.
because Jenn and I are different in this facet because Jenn does a lot more um, private, independent travel, flexible, independent travel for individuals, like her example with the father and son, three people, where I specifically do small groups. So it becomes a new level of balance within a small group to make sure that in a group of 10 to 15 or so people, that even the individual feels like they're getting a personalized experience. And that's where groups are changing, Lon. It's really, I think, redefining the group experience so that there's a balance of both a, a group feel and doing group activities together, as well as downtime and personal choice built into the flow of a multi-day tour. So that's where I feel like Cherish does really well and really great in handling the curation and itinerary building on behalf of our partners who want to book a private tour with us and also our small group tours for women. We really make sure that you have this balance and flow of programming and downtime and personal choice because that's really what the consumer and the traveler is asking for.
That's great. Right.
Yeah, actually, just to tag on, and I think the other comment that I was going to tag on to the question before folds nicely into this from our part. I love that Megan has her event and conference background because exactly what she said, she's balancing the two, the programming with the downtime, and that is key for the needs and wants of each individual person traveling in a group. The other thing that I wanted to say that kind of folds into this as well to the prior question was we as travel agency owners and advisors need to also, like, yes, the client will say yes to those experiences that they want. It is also our job to work with our suppliers and our collaboration partners to advise and guide our clients, whether it be a corporate company taking in a retreat or an incentive trip to the independent traveler, is to advise them where they can bring that budget down. I think that that's really crucial to also say that we just don't throw everything, we don't put all the whole everything that you want in a kitchen sink and expect you to say yes to it. It's also our job to say, you know what, you don't need to stay at the 5 star or the restaurant or the hotel that has um, the spa if you guys aren't going to use a spa or it's not an amenity that you're going to do. We as advisors need to also know our clients and then communicate that with our suppliers and our partners that this is where we're going to do some give and take in order to still maintain as close to the budget. When I first started out, we used to be advised in sales where you do like budget and then below and above, and people always would go towards the above because you just gave them everything they wanted to. However, you still need to know that you care about your clients and make sure that you're not only meeting that balance of downtime and tours and whatnot, but you're also meeting that balance of their needs and expectations in order to build to get their trust in what they're collaborating with you to create, whether it's independent or a group experience.
Yeah, great. Okay, so a couple more topics I want to cover before we conclude. First one has to do with friction or challenges that we are currently facing when it comes to group travel. And I guess the first question would be, is there anything that has changed post-COVID that is more frustrating now than maybe prior to group travel kind of changing? Is there anything in group travel that's frustrating you more or that you'd like to see changed or
I can I'll go ahead. I think that so Cherish also launched in 2021. So I wasn't in this specific space
okay.
prior to COVID. However, in doing conference planning, I have some experience in the rinse and repeat. And I think that's what Jenn and I are both highlighting in the curation that we're able to do for our businesses and learning and meeting the needs of the travelers and the groups that come with us. Because often conference planning and also destination management companies and people who receive a lot of bulk business are presenting a very similar itinerary to absolutely everybody. They're using the same hotels, they're using the same local partners, they're using the same guides. It doesn't matter if it's a women's group or if it's, a retired group of golfers. They're presenting a similar experience to everyone, and that to me is still frustrating now, and it was frustrating before COVID when I was in conference planning too. Not everybody is the same, not everybody wants the same. And I also think that it's frustrating from being a supplier on my end, being with my B2B business with our private tours, that when I'm trying to get visibility for a small operator like myself, that it's harder for us to get visibility because so many destination management companies, travel agencies, etc., within this industry go directly to what they already know. And because that is the case, it takes away from the opportunity for travelers to get this curation that they're asking for and get these immersive, unique experiences that are truly out there for them. I think that really we're seeing more direction towards people wanting to stay at smaller properties, have more intimate experiences when they're traveling abroad, want to be in smaller groups, as we've already mentioned. And if the industry stays stagnant in only working with the verified larger corporate suppliers, then they're gonna miss the target when it comes to meeting the needs of the ever-changing traveler.
Yeah, that gets back to that individualized, personalized trips and itineraries. Um, Anything to add to that, Jen?
Yeah, absolutely. So Megan and I have spoken, and I love what Cherish has done. I love what RoomRite's done to kind of change the dynamics in group travel. And I would say that one of those friction points is what Megan touched on was this is the way the hospitality business industry has always done business. So when I actually was back in 2 years ago trying to do the groups, like I said, I wanted to just go off to groups to begin with because I love community. I love that aspect. I came from a health coaching with retreats. But then on the same breath, it was like, oh, well, this is how we do contracts, and this is how we do this, and this is how, this is the way it is. Okay, well, that's not flexible enough for a group that's this size, or that they want to be able to go to this experience. Can your concierge service help with that? No, we've never really done that. It was either room blocks for a wedding or individual bookings. There
Mm.
was nothing in between. And I feel like it isn't until now, and we're talking, I've been in business for 5, 6 years. Now I'm finally getting to meet partners and suppliers that have that flexibility to move quickly, to plan on a dime, or to fill a need because they've worked with their own partners and we're able to book a room block of maybe 3 or 4, and we don't need to do the minimum or have to chase, contracts in that regards. That's been what was frustrating in order to get into the group. So into the group industry. And so I know a lot of older travel advisors would be like, "Oh, like I booked a whole cruise, and I'm a waterways." And I'm like, "How did you do that?" But it took them 15, 16 years to build that clientele. That doesn't help the now advisor that's trying to cater and do these curation and change the way that even individual travel is done, let alone trying to do that for groups. And so I felt like the biggest friction point in the not necessarily in individuals, but mostly the friction point in the group was in the groups for that. This is the way we do this. This is the way we do that. There's nothing in between. And now sitting here on this panel and having this conversation, there are finally people solving that problem to be able to um, give clients and advisors the opportunity to really curate and to really do what they really want to be doing versus trying to bend into a square head peg into a round hole. I think that's been the biggest frustration for trying to get into groups for me as an advisor.
Yeah, I think I will add too, because especially from a room right angle, in being someone that is a solution to fill unused room blocks, it's kind of an old practice, right? Like it's been around for ages that people can book out massive room blocks at hotels that they can hold on to until 60, 90, 120 days out, which is pretty like close in when you're considering someone planning a potential vacation or a group trip like me. Like I have an example from Alaska. There's this hotel that almost always is completely sold out 18 months in advance because cruise lines are booking out their entire hotel, but they're not technically really booking it. They're just blocking it through room blocks. So if I wanted to actually utilize that hotel property, I would have to wait until the cruise lines are releasing rooms, let's say 4 months beforehand, which doesn't really work in benefit to the hotel's revenue or in a small group travel company like mine to be able to utilize, this particular hotel property. I think that some hotels are starting to figure that out and leave a reserve around for smaller blocks or for independent travelers instead of being completely sold out from room blocks only. But it is very much an old practice to see that hotels will block out a majority of their hotel for other corporate partners, large scale things, and not be able to fill it.
Yeah, well, that kind of leads me right into my next area that I wanted to talk about, and that is the importance of relationships with providers, suppliers, and partners in the hospitality industry. And I think that's kind of where RoomRite comes in, where we can be a provider, a solution for people who are looking for, a great rate, and maybe it's something that they're looking for in a relatively short period of time. They're going to have to try and book something, in a shorter period of time than you normally would. And that's where we can provide that. But anyway, talk about the importance of relationships.
I think obviously they're key. We wouldn't be even asking this question if relationships didn't matter. I think relationships are key not only in this success of building a clientele and building a rapport with travelers, but in the relationships that you're building with your suppliers, your partners on the ground, and things like that. I'm in a very unique position where I design all the tours myself. So I don't typically partner with destination management companies. I'm making individual relationships with each of the hotels, with each of our excursion providers, with each of our transportation providers in order to put together a product that truly supports local economy and women's economy in the places that we visit. And for me, building those relationships is the most important because they're the ones who ultimately are delivering the experience for my guests. And I've seen personally in this shift in the way that I've worked from conference planning to here, as well as in my own personal travel versus traveling the way that I do now with groups, that when you've built a personal relationship with these hotels, with the tour providers, with the transportation companies, you get a whole different level of service in comparison to if you don't even know who the owner of the hotel is. So they're so much more willing to make sure that you're having the best experience possible, and they go above and beyond. The amount of times that I'll get a phone call or a message or something directly from the hotel owner or the owner of the transportation company for the smallest minute change or inconvenience. Like I was just in Portugal, and the hotel owner reached out to me to say, "Oh, I'm so sorry that we were doing construction on one of our pathways. Like, I really wanted to apologize for that." And I was like, wow, thank you for apologizing for something that was absolutely not an inconvenience. But it's just the level of care and hospitality that I feel like sometimes is missing from some of the larger and bigger suppliers and corporations. They're missing that like personal touch. And I just love that in the relationships that I'm building with people and it the suppliers, the hotels. It's so, so important to just make things more personal. That's what hospitality is all about, anyways.
I agree. I agree.
So I would actually sum up all of this in one word as intentional. When it comes to relationships, it's whether it's a relationship with the owner, as Megan mentioned, with the hotelier, the tour operators that she does, and this is the intention that she does, which how she's creating her itineraries and her connections. Same is true with intentions with whether it's with my clients that are groups or individuals. What is the intention that they want to create? And so when you have intention, like a very clear intention, then your relationships are defined to be amazing. Like, and I can say that just being in a short amount of time, kind of like just coming out of startup, really 5 years in a business that's forever evolving, but it's my relationships. And we say sometimes as an advisor or agency owner that it's about the fam trips. It's not. I do my fam trips so differently. I've had many of my suppliers say you're different because the way I network is relational networking. I'm not just there to get your metrics, your sales goals, and whatnot. I'm there to know who you are as a person running the hotel, the director that's running the hotel, who is also going to be my backup for anything that's gone wrong. What are my customer service levels? And simplistically, Megan hit on it already. Hospitality is about customer service. And you can see it in some of the five stars that are training at a high level brand with emotional intelligence. And you can see them in the brand names that have been corporate, that it's actually a struggle. But you also see it in those boutique properties are exquisite gems that many consumers outside of the travel industry or the hospitality industry have no idea exist. And the fact that I have intentional relationships with suppliers like RoomRite and or Megan's company Cherish, then I can actually explain to them why. No longer, and I used to be in government where you get the answer like, why are we doing that way? And the answer would be, oh, because that's the way we've always done it.
Mm.
That got under my skin like you would not even believe to this day it does. Whereas when you have intention, my client asked me, why'd you pick Bobcat over Del Rey? Because I liked this. This is what I saw. This is what I understand. This is how they run their property. Not that there's any difference between the other one, but for this particular client and what you are trying to create, this meets your needs. The other hotel will meet your needs because of a different reason, but I can actually speak to the intention as to my why I picked it for my clientele. And that is what my clients absolutely love. And then that's trust to me, that's trust to my suppliers, and it's completely relational.
Oh, I
And
love that. I love that use of the word intention. I think that's
yeah,
great.
I agree. And I think that Jen, what you're leaning into too is all about storytelling, right? Like people want to know the story behind things, and that's so cool that you can give that to them. It's something that I pride myself on and cherish as well. I think it's so important, like Lon, the relationships you're building, because then you can tell that person's story in an authentic way, and then people receive it so much more openly, and it makes their experience through travel so much more unique.
You guys have been so great. I hate to actually end this discussion, but we have we run out of time. But we do have time for one more question that I want you all to address. Okay. And Tonianne, I'm going to get you in on this one as well. Tonianne's kind of been waiting patiently. You guys have done such a fabulous job of covering every point. But here's the final question. How are group experiences evolving to support not just travel, but also connection, leadership development, or even personal transformation?
I can go,
I got you. I got
go
you. I
Okay.
Jen.
got you. So I really think group travel today isn't about getting people together in the same place. It is 100% more than that. And it lumps up everything you're asking. And it's about designing an experience they'll never experience the same way again. And so even if they have a group experience that was set in um, Houston and they go back to Houston, it's not going to be the same because we cannot recreate it at that point in time. And that's why it's changed. That's why it's going to be different. That's why it's important to continue to do this and expand that community. That's basically what I would answer, how I'd answer that.
All right. Anything to add to that, Megan?
I think that was a perfect summary, Jen. I think it makes so much sense. I think that for Cherish, a lot of our travelers are women who have recently experienced some big transition in their life, whether it's a recent retirement or going through a divorce, or maybe they just recovered from an illness like cancer. Everyone goes through these huge life transitions and moments, and what makes travel transformational, especially for these types of people, is the fact that they are experiencing something entirely new to them that they then receive so wholeheartedly. And it makes them uh, realize something different about themselves and about the world around them. And it helps them come home transformed because they've experienced that new thing. So I think that that's what I would add to Jen's really perfect summary of why it's so meaningful to travel and travel intentionally.
No, I love that. I love that. Tony Ann, I know you've been waiting patiently. But do you have anything that you would like to add to this overall topic, this conversation?
I mean, Jen and Megan have done a great job, but I think the main thing everyone keeps coming back to is everyone's traveling with intention and personalization. Each trip is going to be about the individuals going on that trip. Not everyone's going to click the box and say, I'm going to London and I'm going to see Buckingham Palace, the London Eye, the Changing of the Guards. No, they're going to London, they're going to go get tea, they're going to go to this exhibit. It's about personalization and making sure the group travel is for that group that's going and not just every group gets the same exact trip.
Great, thank you. And I wanted to thank all of you for participating as panelists in our Inside the Block segment. And for those who don't know, Inside the Block is a program that we do every month. And we get together leaders from the hospitality industry, executives, business leaders, business owners, and we talk about the different challenges, the different things that are going on in the hospitality industry, how it's evolving, how it's changing, and how we can address the needs of the customer even better. And it is sponsored every month by RoomRite Group Solutions. And RoomRite is a company that is committed and dedicated to improving group travel. And so I just want to thank you all for participating as panelists. And I think we're all in the same mindset. We want to do what we can to make group travel even better. So thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next month. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you
so much, Lon.